Does that show you that we're recording?
It does.
Yes. Okay.
So I think we can start. Teresa, if there's anybody that joins, could you please allow them in just while I'm talking, and once I'm done, then I can. I thank you. Hello, everybody. This is the second session of our project. I thought I knew how to write. I'm Leonardo Silva. I'll be your host for today, and I'm a Professors for the Future Fellow for the year 2019-2020. As you probably saw in the Eventbrite pages, in the first section, we had the opportunity of talking to a psychologist, Dr. Chen, and cover the anxiety aspect of writing anxiety. And our goal today, our main goal today, is to listen from writing professionals and see how they deal with writing anxiety, or what kind of advice they give to their students when they are struggling with their academic writing. So our speakers today are Dr. Kathie Gossett. She has a PhD in writing studies from University of Illinois. She's assistant director in graduate writing, and her research areas and teaching areas are very ample. The list is long, you can see it here, but they are all somehow connected to writing. So thank you very much, Dr. Gossett, for speaking with us today. It's a great pleasure to have you here. And also, we're going to listen from my colleague, Dr. Eugênia Fernandes, who is in the Department of Spanish and Portuguese. She has a PhD in linguistics from the University of Brasilia, and she works with second language acquisition, phraseology, and Portuguese language. She's also coordinator of the CELPE-Bras proficiency exams, which has a written aspect to the exam. So she is used to both preparing students to taking this written exam with very high stakes, and also coordinating this exam. And besides all of that, she is also coordinator of the Portuguese language essay contest. So I'm going to try not to repeat myself very much today, just in case we have a lot of people that went to the first section and are back here. So just so I vary a little bit on the things that I said in the first section and things that I'm saying today. So the only thing that I'm going to have to repeat, so just we bear this in mind, is the cycle that we understand as maybe one of the definitions of writing anxiety. So it's a cycle of negative thinking, writing avoidance, and lack of success, right? One would be responsible for causing the other, and we feel, and that's where this feeling of getting stuck with our writing, that's where it comes from. I started this project in the beginning of this academic year, and I was communicating with Sarah Reed from UC Davis, the Sacramento campus, who also developed a Professors for the Future project on writing, but for Sacramento. And one of the interesting things that she told me and made me think a lot about is the fact that you may have many manuals that deal with writing, but the anxiety aspect of it can be triggered by many different things. And it is hard to understand what is causing it in order to plan something, in order to affect, in order to do something about it, right? So I decided to express an example for this, and this is also something that I see a lot communicating with my peers, with my fellow graduate students, that it is the relationship that I see between academic writing and time, academic writing and fear. So just to tell you a brief story, and I promise this is a very brief one. My experience with writing anxiety, I mean, I have felt it in different ways, in different stages of my life, but 2014 was an important year for me related to writing anxiety, because I was finishing my master's thesis, and I was supposed to write a master thesis. And on the one hand, I was very excited about finishing my master's and maybe working. I still wasn't sure if I was going to start my PhD right after, or if I was going to start to work a little bit more before I went to the PhD. But at the same time that I was very excited about the future in my career, I was afraid of what was going to happen with my life once I finished my master's, because I think that many people here are not 100% sure of what is going to happen with them once they finish their PhD. And that may affect your writing. And coincidentally, in the same year, and this is very important to this story, my father was diagnosed with cancer. So my routine changed a lot from working in the library, making research, developing research in the library, to basically reading and writing in the hospital with my father. And that brought me a type of writing anxiety that I couldn't understand, and I couldn't understand for a long time, because it took me a while to understand this relationship that the more I wrote, the closer I got to the conclusion of my master's. And the closer I got to the conclusion of my master's, the closer I got to this moment that was challenging for me. That was what was going to happen with my life after the PhD. And this is something that I hear from several of my fellow graduate students. And it's something that maybe I thought that it was a good way of starting this as maybe giving a piece of advice and try to understand why you feel uncomfortable about your writing, what is causing your discomfort with writing, and that may have to do with the future, with uncertainty, right? So that's my story. As you can see, it has a happy ending. I finished my master's. There's a picture I took of my master's thesis and the copies that I was supposed to hand in. But I'm going to stop talking for now, and we're going to listen from Dr. Gossett. And then at the end of this, at the end of both presentations, I'm going to talk a little bit more and maybe suggest a few strategies that we may have in order to deal with getting stuck with our academic writing. So I'll stop sharing my slides here. And now, Dr. Gossett.
Hello, everyone. Let me figure out how to share my slides now. I just have a couple because I wanted to keep this open for discussions and questions as well. Did that work? Okay. Right, thanks. Sorry, it's on my other screen, so I'm looking at a different screen instead of the one that I wanted to look at. So I'll try and do this looking in the camera, but looking in the corner of my eye. So as Leonardo said, I am the Associate Director for Graduate Writing Services. And that means that I focus on all things graduate writing. I've been a graduate writer. I've gone through both the master's thesis and the dissertation process. My master's thesis went amazingly smoothly. My dissertation process was amazingly horrific. So I have been on the end of dealing with writing anxiety and writer's block, as well as teaching graduate students writing, I won't say tricks, although that's the word that came to mind, but tips, and working with graduate students in writing classes to be able to figure out how to move also from writing 20 to 30 page seminar papers to something longer like a dissertation or a thesis, which can be very intimidating when you're moving from one to the other. So one of the first things I want to talk about, and I talked a little bit about this with Leonardo when we had a one-on-one, is to think about writing as individual as a fingerprint. We all have our own unique writing style as well as writing process. So you never want to compare yourself to someone else. If there is someone in your cohort who is writing really well, or you think they're writing really well, that may or may not be true, but comparing yourself to them is not going to help you in any way. I remember when I was in graduate school, I'm a fast typer, but I make a lot of mistakes, and so I backspace a lot. And one of my colleagues came to me and said, I just don't understand how you can write so fast and be creating these things so fast because you type so fast. And I'm like, I'm not creating, I'm really deleting a lot and writing over, right? So a lot of things that you might think if you try and compare yourself to other writers really aren't going to be true and really are not going to be very helpful. I have a writing partner now, and our writing styles are very different. And I still sometimes feel a bit of anxiety when I sit down to write with her. She's one of the types of people who knows the academic genres and can just sit down and really produce on any given kind of like, if she schedules an hour for writing, she will write for that whole hour. Whereas I'm more of a, things have to be comfortable. I have to be thinking things through. I do a lot of drafting. So, you know, really everybody does think and write in their own way. And so not comparing yourself to other writers is really important. Writing is also personal in that it is sharing ourselves with the world or with our audience. And that is not necessarily comfortable. I think a lot of times, I think the best comparison I can make is almost thinking about like going out on stage or something, if you have stage fright, right? I mean, we have, you know, when we finish our writing process, we've put our heart and soul into it, and we've really put a lot of energy, and so it feels like we're putting ourselves on display, and it can be challenging to really be comfortable doing that, right? If you put it out there and people don't like it, what are you going to do? If you put it out there and people like it, great, but you never really know. So to also understand that everybody goes through that with writing, right? Everybody has that kind of, oh, is it ready to go? I don't want to quite put it out yet. So it's really important, again, to, you know, understand that everybody's going through that. Some other people in your cohort or your class or graduate students, you know, may not necessarily look that way. But I have talked to lots of graduate writers, lots of professors about their writing processes, and even professors who've been writing for 20, 30 years have that, at least an initial kind of anxiety about actually putting their writing out into the public. So, you know, writing anxiety is normal. That's one of the main messages I want to get out. Everybody has it. If you have it, you're not abnormal, right? And so one of the things that can happen when we have writing anxiety is we kind of wrap ourselves up so much into it that we get to the point of writer's block because we think that we're the only ones going through it. We're the only ones who are feeling this. And then we can start to run into all sorts of challenges with our writing. So here on campus, I wanted to talk a little bit about the resources that we have available on campus to help you through grad resources, or grad pathways, sorry. And all of these resources are available through the UWP website. I should have put the URL on there, but I will put the URL on here before I send it to Leonardo to put up with this video. So we're in Voorhees right now. We'll be in Walker Hall next year, but we have 7 right now graduate writing fellows who are trained to work with graduate writers and are trained to work with all genres and all fields of writing at the graduate level. We focus purely on graduate students. This is not undergraduates and helping graduate students or anything like that. This is graduate students who are in similar process of getting their PhDs, who are writing the same kind of documents that you are. We have writing fellows from across the different departments. We have, I'm trying to think, we have 3 STEM fellows right now from STEM kind of fields. We have 2 social sciences fellows, and then we have 2 humanities fellows. So we have a really good representation of experience writing in many different disciplines. Although I would say if you're a STEM person, I wouldn't worry about taking a consultation with a humanities fellow. Sometimes having a completely different viewpoint, outside viewpoint, can help you maybe find some things that someone in your own field might overlook, or you know, they can help you maybe with some different kinds of languages. So if you are in a STEM field and you want to work with a STEM consultant, that's great. If not, you know, we have a wide variety. And I do encourage you to make appointments across the different disciplines to get feedback. So the writing consultations are one-on-one. They're 30 minutes at a time, and you can make up to 6 appointments every quarter. So in this quarter and through the summer, since we don't know what's going on in fall, but this quarter through the summer, we'll be doing these consultations online via Zoom, just like we're doing this. We also offer writing retreats. So it's basically an open room with a graduate writing fellow who can be there to answer minor questions. We can't use that time as consultation time, but you can gather with 5, 10, 15 other graduate students, depending on who has signed up for it, in a space that's set aside for 3 hours to just be writing, all right? When we're in person, we have snacks and things like that. Again, these are running online right now, so you can just be online with other people who are doing the same kind of activities. I know sometimes it can be helpful, especially in the kind of situation we're in now, where we feel so alone. Even just having people on our computer doing the same activity can help us feel like we're connected to a community again. Several colleagues and I have 1 day a week where we sit down for 2 hours. We're all on the same Zoom call. We're not co-authoring anything, but we're all together. So if someone wants to make a comment or ask a question, we do kind of what we call sprints, where you just have to sit down and write for 15 minutes. And then we kind of read stuff back to each other. So I think finding that connection can be really important, and writing retreats are a great way to do that. We also have writing workshops. So these are 1.5-hour workshops. Again, we're offering these online on different topics throughout the year. I think we still have one coming up on grant writing, I believe, and one other one that I'll be teaching in June about incorporating more writing assignments into your own syllabi and grading processes for those. So those are available. You can you can find them on the Grad Pathways calendar. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about is the Writing Partner Program. So if you really are having a problem finding someone to write with, or finding a cohort or a group of people to write with, we have a program where we match writers together. So you can come in, or at this point, send us an email, fill out a form. We get lots of applications for this. And so we go through the process of trying to match you with at least one other writer, if not two, to get you into kind of a writing partners program, a writing group program, so that you can have a group that you can feel responsible for, set goals for, have them hold you responsible to it, or just, again, get on Zoom for a couple hours every week and have somebody there that you know is there doing the same kind of activity. So all of those things are available to you on, well, I'd say on campus, but on Zoom right now as well. So those are a lot of the things that, that we are able to do for you. So then, there's a bullet there. I didn't mean to do that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was techniques for resolving writer's block. So writer's block is an interesting phenomenon. There's lots of research on it. There's lots of reasons why it happens. There's lots of reasons why some people experience it and others don't experience it. The trick is to find a way that helps you get through that kind of wall. So this is something that is a personal experience. In fact, my beginning research when I came out of graduate school was around writing dissertations and the challenges that students face when they write dissertations, because I had had such a problem with writer's block and with different aspects of my committee and other things that happened. But this really, that experience led to almost probably a year or two of writer's block for me, where I really couldn't I would just sit down at my computer and would just stare at the blank screen for hours. And I think we've all probably had that experience. So thinking about ways to get around that. So one of the things that is very popular, and it worked for me, is to actually get outside and take some kind of a recording device with you, your phone or some other kind of device, and get out of your office and walk and talk into some kind of recording device, and work through your issues without a screen in front of you. And it can also just be a good break to get out and walk and kind of take a break from your writing. But, you know, thinking about writing can be done in many different ways. And the thought process that happens with writing doesn't have to happen in front of a computer, right? It can happen in front, it can happen outside, it can happen while you're on a drive, it can happen while you're dog walking or playing with your dogs. So really taking a break and getting away from your situation where you are writing is an important first step. Also realizing that spaces can become toxic. If you have had too many failures in one space, then that place kind of becomes toxic, and it's time to maybe try and find another place to try and do some writing. So for example, I write a lot in my office, but there are times that I just couldn't do that. And so going to a cafe, which right now we can't really do, but maybe going to a table outside in your backyard, or doing something else that gets you away from that kind of toxic situation. And until you really are kind of flowing and writing again, it's best not to go back to that position. You want to go back to that place successful so that you can make that into a successful place to write rather than a toxic place to write. One of the other things that you can do, there's a couple of techniques in writing. One of them is called free writing, right? So one of the challenges with writer's block or writer's anxiety is looking at a blank screen and your mind goes blank, right? So you know you have ideas, but the blank screen is just staring at you and you can't seem to get anything on that screen. So the goal for this kind of an exercise is to actually just get things on that screen. So what you want to do is you want to set a timer. You want to choose some kind of time limit, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I wouldn't go much longer than 15 minutes. These are meant to be kind of like sprints or clearing the air. So you set a timer, you open up a document, whether it's a document you're working in or you want to start a new one. And when you hit the timer to say go, you start writing and you don't stop writing. So even if you come to the end of a thought, you keep writing that last word or that last sentence until a new thought comes to you. So the goal here is to, first of all, break that wall about getting things on a white piece of paper or a white screen, but it's also to break that kind of block in your mind with your thoughts. So just getting everything out on the screen. Sometimes it can end up being things that you might move over into a document. You might find you have some good ideas when you do this kind of brainstorming or free writing. Sometimes it's just a matter of clearing out all the stuff, right? Sometimes when I do free writing, it is stuff that, you know, I'm just kind of dumping everything that I remember from all of the reading and the research I've been doing. Sometimes it ends up just being kind of a spree about all of the crud that's happening in my life at that time that's kind of blocking me and stopping me from being able to focus on my writing. So this is a really successful way to try and get past the writer's block. Some other techniques that you might want to try, I'm guessing most of you have tried some of these: brainstorming, thinking about doing mind maps rather than just lists of things in brainstorm. So this is where you start with the central topic and then you kind of connect off of that and you keep going until you see how much you have out there. So there's lots of different ways to kind of think about working through the anxiety and working through some of the challenges you're having. You know, I would also, I'm a big advocate of counseling. I have gone to counseling for writer's block before. Sometimes there are other issues in our life that keep us from doing the writing. But there's a lot of stress on you as graduate students. There's a lot of things that you have to complete. There's a lot of deadlines. There's power issues in terms of, are you writing for you? Are you writing for your advisor? Maybe there's challenges within your committee. So there's a lot of things that actually can, that are not actually writing specifically, but they are writing adjacent and writing, you know, it will affect your writing. And so it's important to realize, just because maybe you can't get the words out right then, it may not be a writing thing. And so to make sure that you're trying different things, you know, talking to other people too, other graduate students, but really, you know, I think the biggest thing is to think about changing where you're writing if you can. and to think about doing some kind of free writing or brainstorming before you get started on your writing sessions, right? You also want to figure out, I'm not a kind of person that can write if I say I'm going to write from 9 until 12. That doesn't always work for me. So you want to be forgiving also. You don't want to get into a situation where you start to get down on yourself because you didn't stick to that really scheduled time frame that you had. You know, so you want to make sure and give yourself a break and you know, give some time for self-love. I found a lot of you know, going out, getting a pedicure or things like that, things that you enjoy to do. You know, if things aren't working on the writing field, you need to change your attitude as well, and the inside attitude. So going out and doing something that you enjoy and then coming back to the writing. I think that was pretty much, sorry, I can't seem to get back to my slides here. Okay, so I'm just going to stop since I can't seem to get my slides to work and ask other questions. Ah, there, that worked. Okay, then I'll turn the time back over to Leonardo to move us along.
Thank you very much, Kathie. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Eugênia Fernandes. I believe she is sharing her PowerPoint slides on Zoom. Here it is. Okay.
Okay, I want to be 100% sure that you can hear my voice. Okay, I want to start saying thank you, Well, for the invitation. And I won't lie, when you invited me for this amazing workshop, I had in mind, how can I talk about anxiety, especially when I'm writing, because I feel so anxious when I need to write something. So the first thing that came to my mind was, I'm a fraud. I cannot do that. And I want to share a little bit of my journey with you and navigate using Twitter. And I hope you enjoy this experience because I do love Twitter. So I'm going to start here with this tweet. And then I asked person X to read my paper. And person X says, I think our paper flows very well, gives people all the info they need to understand and follow your argument. My brain, you're lying. Person X, yeah, I enjoy it. My brain, no, they don't. So hello, writing anxiety and imposter syndrome at the same time. So this is pretty much how I feel when I need to write something. And my experience when I was writing my dissertation was not so great. And I told myself, I won't write anymore. After that, I'm done. And 2 years later, I published my first article. And last year, I published a book. And I'm writing a second one now. So this shall pass. This will pass. Be confident. I say that because I am a speaker of English as a second language. And for us, the stakes are even higher because we need to write in a language that is not our first language. And we still have the writing anxiety that we have even writing in our first language. But to talk about anxiety, I'm not a professional. I don't feel comfortable defining the term, but I found this extremely helpful. So Gilligan said that low to moderate levels of anxiety are perfectly normal. So in fact, anxiety is useful because it can increase our motivation and provide us energy to perform well. The problem is when anxiety becomes here counterproductive, and that's when we become paralyzed. I cannot do anything. And that's how I feel sometimes. For second language learners or speakers, I want to say first that the terminology is not my favorite one because I think the term second language puts languages in some type of levels. I don't like that. I prefer the term additional language. But literature itself says that it's the term for the field is actually foreign language anxiety. So I'm gonna stick to this term in respect to this field itself. So it all became to the light with Christian, and I think he was talking about his hypothesis for learning a language, and he mentioned the affective future and how affective future could interact with motivation. So students who have a high affective future tend to perform badly when writing. So I can relate to that statement. And then in the same year that Crescent said that, Gardner in 1985 created this construct of anxiety. And since then, the field has became a little more wild. And you will see that we have many publications so far. And there's one here that is extremely helpful to us in this context. Mainly because it says that for second language learners or speakers, this type of anxiety is something situation specific. And it's similar, for example, when you need to present something on a stage. And imagine feeling that when you are writing a dissertation. Something happened in my kitchen, oh my gosh. Sorry. And imagine feeling that, and not only as a situation specific, but in 4 years or 6 years or even 7 years, it's extremely hard. And then another study from Dr. Onibuzi and Dr. Bailey and Dr. Bailey, they said that students with the highest levels of foreign language anxiety have some specific characteristics, and they are high academic achievers, they had not taken high school language courses, they had a negative perception of their scholastic competence, or a negative perception of their self-worth. And then this is totally related to self-esteem. And as a second language learner and speaker, we need to work 2 times more to overcome this. Well, in January of this year, Dr. Ferricher, the MLA conference, she presented a work creating a connection between the dramatistic pentad by Kenneth Burke and the writing process for graduate students. Basically, she was debating how this can be useful for graduate students. So we have here as the first part of our pentad, what? And the topic can be anything. It can be even your experience as a writer. The topic can be the title of your dissertation if you want to. The point is, using this technique, you can see how is the motivation going at this point from different angles. So what is stopping me from writing my dissertation, for example? Agent, who is stopping me? Scene, when or where is this happening? Purpose, and why this is happening. And the main point that for me was extremely, she's a genius. She said agency. How are we doing that? How am I doing that when I'm writing my dissertation? So she said something at the end of her presentation, basically saying that you must reclaim both your time and your agency. The means for you to achieve your goal. And your goal at this point is writing your dissertation or your thesis, or even an academic paper that you need to publish. And how you can do that. So my idea here is using this rhetorical purpose from Kenneth Burke's and helping you with a few strategies. I'm not a specialist in anxiety. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a linguist talking about anxiety. So I have, oh, do you see my stars? Yeah. So how? So this is what we need to understand, how we can do this. And I have here a few strategies to cope with writing anxiety. So the first point, and I will relate to the talk of my colleague Kathie, it's design a plan. So what you need to do, I need to write my dissertation or my thesis or to finish that paper, design a plan for that. And I'm talking about a long plan. And then to achieve that plan, you can set micro goals. And that could be something, for example, I'm gonna write 300 words per day, or I'm gonna write 200 words per day. But wait, if I sit one day and I write 3,000 words, it's easier. No, it's not. Because after that, you're gonna be so exhausted. The other day, you won't be able to face your computer. You want just to relax. So it's better to write 300 words per day, and then in 10 days, you're gonna have 3,000. Why not? And then these micro goals can also be related to data collection if you're working with specific ways or collaborators. Let's talk about short steps to achieve a goal. Another helpful strategy is, of course, exploring what UC Davis has to offer for you. And we have the Language Center. And the Language Center, well, I work a lot with the Language Center, mainly because they have a program called Language Exchange, and you can meet people from other majors or other fields. And then your goal there would be finding someone outside your department who could be willing to read your work and then share their views on this. The Language Center also offers other tools for you to succeed. We also have the Center for Educational Effectiveness, and I really recommend this one, specifically the workshops, if you are an associate instructor, if you're teaching a class, because I'm now teaching 3 classes. I'm basically surviving this quarter. And if you're teaching a class and writing a dissertation, my friend, you are a survivor. So they have the tools for you to succeed doing both. So I really recommend the CEE. They are great friends. And of course, as Kathie mentioned, the counseling services. They also have now the possibility for you to meet with e-visits. So I think it's a great resource for you to succeed as well. Sometimes we are not able to fix this relationship between the dissertation or the thesis and ourselves. So it's good to have professional help when we can't, when you're paralyzed and we can't do anything else. Well, I have here a few more tips. So Kathie also mentioned that, and basically the recording part, I love it. And I was discussing that with my therapist because I have my best ideas when I'm taking a shower. And I have a toddler. She's 3. She's everywhere. And that's when I have some peace of mind to, think about life or think about some new ideas. And then and I think about a lot of things. My heart usually races when I'm taking a shower because I have everything on my mind. And then my therapist said, why don't you record things? And then I just put a voice recorder there and I start talking about anything that comes to my mind. And for me, this was something extremely hard to do because in the first place, when this quarter started, I had the fear of listening to my voice. I have the fear of recording my face to everybody. And now I'm doing this. I'm recording my face, I'm recording my voice, and my face is everywhere on Canvas. So they see me. So I had to overcome my fear. So I found that when I'm showering, when I have this opportunity, which is rare for a mom of a toddler, I have my best moments for creativity. So you might find yours. So record your ideas and then listen to it, listen to your voice. My 5th tip is write to vent and to create connections. If you sit to write only to fulfill a requirement, writing will be something so boring. So if you write to share how you feel, you will create this connection with your words. And also, it's important to write to create connections, to build a community. And how can we do that in this moment? And then I go to my last strategy here. Keep in mind, it does take a village. And I'm not talking about raising a child, my friends. I'm talking about writing a dissertation. okay, and a thesis. It does take a village because we can't do this by ourselves without having someone to discuss the topics that we are writing about, to read our work. And this is the perfect opportunity for you to do that. So have you heard about the academic charter? Well, I can't see if you have. That's why I miss my classroom. So the academic charter is basically a hub where you can connect with grad students. You can connect with the academic community as a whole group. And here comes the best part, and I have my stars again, anonymous questions. You can actually ask questions. Am I the only one feeling overwhelmed when I have to write at this point? I can't fill a page. And then you will see a lot of people feeling the same thing. You can also lead a discussion on Twitter. And believe me, Twitter is an amazing tool. If you don't feel comfortable having a profile on Twitter or showing your beautiful face, you can create something with, I don't know, an alias if you want to, if you don't want to identify yourself. So they have this profile, the academic charter, and every time you use this hashtag here, you see it. And they tend to retweet these messages. And you can always send them a private message with your concerns, and then they will share your question or your concern with all the community, and you will see people who can relate. I have here, for example, Diana. So Diana was saying that she had a reflection. This was public, okay? It was there on Twitter. So she had a reflection that morning and about her life and how she was struggling to write. And then she kept in mind, okay, I had to learn English when I first went to Canada, and I had this struggle. And then I have to write my thesis. I had to work on many, many topics at the same time. And then she was saying, little rays of sunshine for people to feel better. So you can see the answers, you can debate topics. It's another way to build a community, especially during a pandemic, where we can't really see our friends. And even though we can chat with our friends and colleagues, sometimes we just don't want to do that. We want to, I want to keep my privacy and I want to share this with someone that I don't know. So this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So my final tip, well, I lied. I told you there were only 6. I have the final one. Is creating a non-exhausting routine. Because as I said, if you sit to write 3,000 words per day, this will be so overwhelming. So I love this citation from Partridge and Starfield, because they say that many students struggle with writing as they labor under the romantic belief that writing is a creative and spontaneous act of inspiration, that they can write only when the muse descends. However, what they say, the muse will not descend, my friends. If you don't sit on a daily basis and create a habit, the inspiration may never come. So those 30 minutes per day or 300 words per day, they can be extremely helpful in this case. And I don't know, in 3 months, I don't know your timeline. I don't know how much time do you have until you finish your program. But if you start doing this, things will be a little bit easier than they are now. Well, there is this quote. I really love this quote, but of course in Portuguese, because I'm Brazilian. In English, it's done is better than perfect. But in Brazilian Portuguese, it's even better. It's feito é melhor que perfeito. Do you see? Rhymes. Feito é melhor que perfeito. So perfection will not happen. Okay, so be understanding with yourself and things will be all right. Of course, I need to have here a tweet to finish this presentation. So I love this one. Does anyone have any plans to differentiate the weekdays from the weekend? I took a mid-weekday off, so I'm currently having a relaxed writing morning with vanilla lattes on top. This can happen to you as well. Okay, so this is my email, and I think we have a few minutes to discuss as well. But before we open this workshop for discussion, I want to thank you, Lau, for the opportunity, especially because he could bring all of us together in the middle of a pandemic, talking about something that we all need to discuss. And I'm not talking about only the graduate students. I'm talking about the entire academic community, okay? So thank you very much for creating that. It's over. Acabei.
Thank you, Dr. Fernandes. Thank you for the kind words. Before we head out, I just have a few more tips to share with you. So I believe I can stop. Yeah, there you go. So just back to my slides, and this is going to be very quick. Just to go over a few other options that we have, as we say, your writing anxiety can be rooted in many different things. So that's why we're trying to provide you with as many tips as possible. So just a few small steps that you can take, you can start taking tomorrow. We spoke a lot about comparing yourself to other people, but be careful when you compare yourself to yourself, to your past self, or to your ideal self. You know, I started this presentation with that little tale about my master's degree, and it is something that I struggle with sometimes. I'm having a tough day working on my doctoral dissertation, and I think, why am I having such a hard time writing here? I wrote a master thesis in a hospital, you know, and that's not productive at all. Your ideal self may be a construct, is probably a construct of your own mind, and your current self is probably very different. It's dealing with different problems, dealing with a different text, in a different context, and that's where your focus should be on, not in some past situation, ideal situation. Something to bear in mind, and this relates with something that we discussed in our previous section, is you never write alone. This is something that we are always discussing in literary studies. Every author has always a virtual public, and by virtual here, it's a word that becomes more and more complicated in our lives. By virtual here, I mean the imaginary public. So more often than not, I believe that graduate students have their advisor as their virtual public. So they're writing their text, thinking already in the reaction of their advisor. And just bear in mind that this imaginary reader is in your imagination. So you can, an exercise that I make is when I feel that I'm directing my text to an overly critical reader, I just think, okay, maybe I'm not going to address this text to this reader. I'll address this text to a different imaginary reader, okay? So this is me telling you to have imaginary friends when you write your texts. You are a professional writer. And by that, I mean, mostly think of a comparison with a professional athlete or a professional chess player. Even professionals lose, even professionals fail. So if you have a bad day, just think about it as, okay, other professionals in other areas fail as well. And what they do is they try to study what's not working and they play another match, right? They go back for another championship. And this is what we should be doing. So again, to relate to the talks of our speakers today, if you didn't write your 300 words, that's okay. Today I didn't do it. Tomorrow I'll try another time, yeah? And try different strategies. It's not just because a strategy worked once that it will work forever, or maybe a strategy failed once that it will always fail. About a year ago, I was starting to work on my job application documents, and for me, it was just overwhelming to think that I could be hired or not, depending on just a few documents. So a 2-page document became a challenging task for me. And a piece of advice that I received at the time was change the color of the font in your Word file. And instead of writing in black and white, I just started doing it in green or in purple. And that kept me going, just because just changing the color of your font changed completely the relationship that I had. And this relates to what Dr. Gossett spoke about, a toxic environment. You may have a toxic virtual environment, right? The word screen can be challenging, and you can do things about that as well, yeah? And there is help in other areas. And here I'm talking, this is mainly like if you're in the humanities, you may get some good advice from scientists. If you think that your tests for your text, for instance, is too narrative, something that I hear from my scientist fellows is that they have an easy time presenting the research, but they need to present the research in a narrative way. So I always say, well, yes, when was the last time that you took a class on narrative or creative writing? So working on those skills may help you as well, not only how to write a short story, but how to write the short story of your research, yeah? Besides all the institutional help that you may get, I want to mention a manual here that for me is extremely helpful, that is Conquering Writing Anxiety. There are many manuals on writing in general, and they have at least a chapter about writing anxiety nowadays. For me, this was the one that in the research that I was making for these projects, I found to be the most helpful to work with. And I'm just showing it here because it goes over the idea of thinking like a writer, yeah? And another problem that I hear very often from students who are working on their papers is, oh, I write a line, I delete a line. I write a paragraph, I delete half a paragraph, right? This might be a matter of you're trying to do too much at the same time. So thinking of different aspects of writing, yeah? There's pre-writing that, for instance, you're with your recorder, you're registering your ideas. There is the writing itself, the drafting, and then you go to revising. I have a rule with myself that's very strict. I never start a day by reading what I wrote on the day before, because that ruins the day for me, because I start reviewing what I wrote on the day before, and then that's counterproductive. So whenever I finish a day writing, I write a few pointers to what comes next. And that's where I start from on the following day, just to avoid mixing these different areas that you have here. And something else now, referring to what we spoke about, sometimes dealing with your feelings and on therapy. And I'm mentioning this again because I just showed this slide very quickly in our first section, is have a journal. If you're feeling that you can't concentrate during your writing, record those thoughts, those other thoughts that are in your mind, yeah? So what is in Cynthia Aaron's book is you have one point of your screen, you're writing your text, your dissertation, or the topic of your choice, and then on the side of it, you record your thoughts. I don't work with that properly. I have the word screen on my laptop, and I just have a notebook on my side, and when I feel that I'm having all these weird thoughts going through my mind when I should be focusing on my dissertation writing, I just record those thoughts. And you can maybe read those back and see if those make sense. Maybe take those to your therapy session and discuss those with your therapist. There's a lot that you can do if you start investigating what goes through your mind while you are writing. Finally, Dr. Gossett mentioned all the resources that we have at UC Davis. You're going to receive an email with all the links to all of this. The people who participated in the first section already received that email. That email will be sent to you when this section is finished. And the last thing I would like to tell you is thank you very much. Here's my thank you slide. Oops, wait a second. No, I think that's better. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much for joining. And if you have any questions, if you have any piece of advice, you have my email already from the Eventbrite text, the Eventbrite page. Thank you very much.